Welcome to the MS&Me Radio Network. The broadcast shows are for informational and entertainment purposes only. They are not designed to provide listeners with specific personal, medical, or counseling advice. Individuals with a medical issue should always consult their healthcare provider. MS&Me is not responsible for content of individual shows. The views expressed by show hosts or their guests are their own. Enjoy the show.
Well, hi there. This is A Couple Takes on MS. Welcome to this, the 70th episode of this show. This is Dan Digman.
And hi, it's me, Jennifer Digman.
Here's the thing. I think what happened there, love, is I went off script and didn't do it the way we normally intro the show. Thereby, I just kind of not on purpose, but totally out of my regular routine. And I didn't do that on purpose, but I stumbled and I couldn't get back in. And what we're talking about today is MS and routines. And just that MS...
Routine matters. I mean, just like there, you faltered
because
you just got a little out of sync.
Yes.
And, you know, Dan and I have both been living with multiple sclerosis for almost 20 years. And we've got plenty of time to realize that our routine matters. And that can be routine in a lot of different ways. I mean, it's important to help you deal with your multiple sclerosis, to deal with your life, different aspects of it. And routine, while it may seem boring, it's pretty important. I don't know about you, Dan. I mean, actually,
yes,
I kind of do. That, you know, if you put something a little bit out of place from where you normally have it, like if you, instead of putting your car keys back on the hook, or if you put, you know, a book that you were reading under the nightstand, that will throw you off a little bit because it's not where it's supposed to be. And I think that organization is just a tiny little part of routine.
And that's what we're talking about today, just in the sense of, do you as a person, or a person living with MS, or a person who cares for a person who has MS, how important is routine in your life in maintaining, staying ahead of, living with this disease? I think I'm ashamed to say, well, I'm not ashamed, I think it's extremely important for me. That I don't think that I don't have to get up at the same time every day. I don't have to go to bed at the same time. I mean, that's a routine we probably should get in the habit of doing, because
yes, I agree. We should get in the habit of doing it.
It helps us to, or at least be at a point where we can embrace the fact that, yeah, our normal bedtime is midnight. Then we'd be a lot better. But
I'd be a lot less crabby, but I think I would embrace a routine that allowed us to get to bed a little bit earlier. But we want to take advantage of everything, and we want to watch our television shows, and we want to talk with people, and we want as much normalcy, and we don't want to give in to this disease any more than we have to. So if that means that sometimes our routine falters a little, but I think our routine is very important, certainly for you. You know, you said that it's important to you. Now, is it important to you as a person living with multiple sclerosis, or is it important to you as a caregiver of someone living with multiple sclerosis, or just a caregiver in general? I mean, what's important about routine?
I think for me, a routine, it helps me to stay mentally in control, or feel like I have a handle on things. or I'm not floundering to remember or think, oh, do I have to do this? Do I have to do that? I think the big one of the big things is like with my disease modifying therapy, I take a shot every other day. Well, unless I'm checking a calendar to say, okay, to remember when I have to take that medicine, and I failed miserably with trying to maintain that on my own. But then this is why I got the health or the MS.
No, it was the Mango
The
Health.
Mango Health app. See, and
You're gonna get. I mean,
but the Mango Health app. I mean that helps me, and it reminds me every other night at 10 o'clock that you need to take your shot. I just got that reminder like 10 minutes ago. So that helps me, and I think then that cleans up my head, or it's one less thing I have to worry about. It's much like you're a list person, and you develop your list. But yeah, I need the routine so then I know that things are taken care of, and I know that like every morning, that's our deal. I mean, it doesn't matter the time we get up, whenever we do, but part of that routine is I get up, and especially if we're showering, I get the bathroom already so you can shower. But every morning, whether we're showering or not, we've got our little pill box so that I can get out like the days. So that helps me remember what day of the week is, and so I know when to take so we take our vitamins every morning, or we at least set them out to remind ourselves later, like if we don't take it before we go to church.
And those simple little routines, just doing the same thing every day, maybe at the same time, or even if it's not at the same time. But those routines, in a way, they help me feel like my head is clean. Like my mind is clean and it's organized. And I think routine and organization go hand in hand. Like tonight, Dan and I were having a conversation with MS Buddy on our MS Buddy app. If you have a smartphone and you want to reach out, if you are a person living with multiple sclerosis, we encourage you to check out MS Buddy because it's just a great resource, like a virtual self-help group at your fingertips on your phone. But tonight we are having a conversation about the importance of routine, and I think we were just pointing out ourselves how it helps us structure and keep our life straight. And I think that structure helps with stress. Like you had said, you're not so worried, like, oh, am I forgetting this? It's like, no, it's a routine. Check it off my list. And I think that's a really advantageous part of keeping a routine or keeping a schedule, being organized.
Well, let me ask this, and think to yourselves out there in listener land, do you keep a routine? I was really, it was interesting to me as we were hosting this, the chat for MS Buddy tonight, just how many people said that they do have a routine, or they at least try to maintain a routine.
I kind of think you have to if you're living with multiple sclerosis.
But then to which I'm asking you, Jennifer, and you out there listening, were you big on routine before you were diagnosed with MS? I mean, there's a question of, and is there a difference between routine and organized, or is that you can't have one without the other?
That's a good question.
I pride myself on that.
I know you do.
Yeah.
I would think that to have routine, it goes hand in hand with organization. But again, you're living with a chronic illness, and there's a lot of stuff when you're living with multiple sclerosis that you have to take control of and organize, and you need to be able to figure out, so many different aspects of your life change when you get this diagnosis. And I think having the structure and organization of a routine makes it a little more sense, or it kind of helps you get a handle or control on an uncontrollable disease. Maybe that's why routine is so important to me and to you. It's just like we can't control the way that the disease reacts in our body, but this gives us a sense of control, that we have routine.
And then the question is, when you have a routine, does that we talk about the positive side of that, where less stress. I know that, okay, we took our vitamins. I know that I made the bed. That's the thing. I make the bed every morning. That's like one of the first things I do. Not only to get the pillows out of the way of the closet so I can get in and get my clothes, but it's just like, that's just a structure. So the question is, for as much as having a routine makes your life easier with MS, does it make it more stressful and more challenging for the times when the routine gets thrown off?
I think it does. For me personally, I know that when my routine's a little off kilter, or things aren't going exactly the way that I've structured them in my head, I'm continuously, I'm always late. Let's just say it that way, I'm always late. And so my routine can be thrown off a little. And I think my lateness isn't because I'm lax and I'm lazy or something, but a lot of times I'm late because I can't use a quote-unquote normal bathroom. I have to have a handicap accessible restroom. And that's anyone living with multiple sclerosis is probably nodding their head, understanding the reality of how important the bathroom is. So, I have to do that before we can go. And that throws off the routine sometimes. So when I am a little later, when my routine gets a little waylaid, I get frazzled. So for as important as routine is, it can be frustrating. I see what you're saying. And I imagine if you're a caregiver of a person with a really stringent routine or a loved one, it can be a little challenging to live with that person. I know sometimes that I have to drive you nuts because I have a particular order, a way I want to do things.
Well, and that's where I was going to ask you the question then. We address some of my routines in terms of the vitamins and and the other thing, routine, coffee. Every morning you got to have coffee. But then with all of my routines, what are some of your routines that are the must-haves, or that which you do every day, and when that gets thrown off, it throws you into a tizzy?
Well, I like to exercise at least. I like to, if I look at a typical week, I like to go to my exercise class at CMU on Mondays. I like to stand in my standing frame on Tuesday or Wednesday. I like to ride my leg bike Tuesday or Wednesday. I like to exercise with the wonderful physical therapy students from CMU. So I think exercise is the most structured routine I have. But then even something simple like going to the grocery store. If I park at the other side of the grocery store, that can throw my routine off because it doesn't go with the way I structure my list. So that can throw it off. And you smile, but I know the same is true for you. Like if we sit on the other side of church
That's
on
exactly
Sunday,
what I was going to say.
That makes you feel like you weren't even at church.
I wasn't at church. If we don't sit in the exact, it's not the exact same spot. It's just the general vicinity. It's got to be on the right side of the worship area, on the left side of the right side, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And I guess it's a question. What?
Well, now I'm thinking that people who are listening to this are like, "Oh, you people, you got bigger fish to fry than multiple sclerosis.
OCD. Well,
You've got like OCD."
However,
and that is not to make light of obsessive compulsive disorder.
No, not at all. But I mean, here's the thing, and maybe the routine is like in this, because I've had MS for 19 years. You've had it for 21. right? Yeah.
Yeah. That's
And
why we split the
yeah,
difference with
split the
20.
difference with 20s. But with age, you know what's going to be, excuse me, what's going to be the most efficient, the most effective on these things. And I know that we need to sit in that spot in the church because A, we need to be where your wheelchair doesn't get in the way. You have to be on my left side because I'm blind in my right eye. So I need to have that vision with you. So, I mean, if we sat on the other side of the church, I don't feel quite as off kilter. But if you're sitting on my right side, I can't see you during the service, and so that's just then I'm just like I'm there by myself. So, but it's like those are the routines that we need to maintain, I guess.
Yes, and I imagine for anybody out there living with multiple sclerosis or a caregiver for a person with MS, those little routines, I mean, something as simple as sitting on the wrong side of each other. Me sitting on your right side, that throws you a little off kilter. Or me, if my caregiver that I normally have during the week is not there, and even if I have a replacement caregiver, he or she may do things differently. So that can throw me a little out of whack. Or if I don't have access to a stylus when I'm using my smartphone, I no longer can just push on my smartphone with my fingers. I will struggle with it and I will attempt to, but if I don't have some of those tools like a stylus, the things that I'm accustomed to using, that will throw my schedule or my routine off. So, as much as the routine is important, there are certain, just certainties that we have to accomplish our normal tasks of living.
And I think something when you had researched this, a point that I thought was really interesting is just to where it says that, especially when you're dealing, I don't say dealing with, but when you have a caregiving relationship, or like you had said there with when you have caregivers come for when I work during the day, having a routine makes it easier for other caregivers to come in and help, know what needs to be done when.
And we had been joking about obsessive compulsiveness, but if my pills are back in the same drawer every time I use it, I am able, when a different caregiver comes to the house to help me, to say, oh, these pills are in the second drawer. Or, if you're looking for paper plates, they're in the closet. Or ketchup is on the third shelf of the refrigerator. Just to have those simple things, because I can't always see where my caregivers are looking or if guests come to the house. So to have that routine. But I also think routine is really important if you're living with multiple sclerosis and cognitive challenges.
True.
Because that just keeps you that much more organized and confident that, yes, their spoon is in the fourth drawer, the fourth drawer to the left, just having that routine and that structure so that you aren't, unsure of yourself. You have that confidence and that structure.
Well, I think because we have so much going on in our heads with dealing with this disease on every level, you don't want to have to pause and things to think about every single thing, or sometimes you do forget. I was just looking over there with the keys, you talked about like everything in its place. If, there's a spot on the key rack for my car keys, your van keys, and if those get altered in any way, think of how many times I like would go out to drive my car and have to come back in because somehow the keys got screwed up and the van keys were put where my... And does that make me lazy because I don't pay attention?
No, or does that make you more effective? And you don't have to scramble looking for your keys. They're in the same place every day so that you can just confidently grab them and go. And that is like that little preliminary or preventative care, if you will, where you're just like, I don't want to be rushing around the house looking for keys. I'm going to put them back in the same spot every day. Because I think that's important, with structure and routine. The one thing that we think about is how important it affects our health and the relationship of, if I'm doing well, then you're doing well. The caregivers and the loved ones. But part of that routine is, medicine, being diligent and tolerant and not tolerant, that's not the word, where you just take your medicine. What's the word I'm looking for, Dan?
Well,
You're being like
structured.
You're
responsible.
Yeah, and so with your medicine, with your exercise, with your diet, I know we both talked about when we're not being good with our routines with diet, we don't feel as well.
Well, and that was an interesting thing from the chat tonight. And I'm not saying everybody involved didn't do this, but I was surprised at the people who had commented that sometimes they don't eat because they're doing so many other things. And I'm like, for me, and consequently then for you, I just think that eating is something that helps to maintain a routine. Even though we're not dieting or eating the proper diet, it's still, that structure of eating right around noon, eating hopefully around 6, and then breakfast whenever we decide to wake up. I mean, it's just having that sort of thing. But to go without a meal or not even making that part of it, I think that just helps to keep things organized, almost like a trapper keeper, where you have like, this is, it's going to break up the day.
Right, and it goes back to self-care, which you and I always talk about. If you're, and I did see, and I spoke with a couple virtual speaking, and keeping quotes, I like air quoted, spoke with, but just if you are not taking care of yourself, if you're not eating, if you're forgetting, you're doing other things, how can you be your best self to live and give the most to your family and your loved ones and your friends? You need to take care of yourself, and self-care is important with your diet, with your exercise, with being compliant to your medication routines. That's really important.
So what happens then to you, Jennifer, and everyone in Listenerland, when the routine gets off? How do you handle that? I think I had just comment on that it's like sometimes if I get off kilter like early in the day, sometimes I just want to just throw my hands up and just almost the day's a wash and I'll do better tomorrow. Or is it like when I used to run, and it's not, and I think it's not how you start the race, it's how you finish. So it's like you got to finish this day strong. And so is that just the challenge to overcome the obstacle of a rough start to come out a champion in the end?
I hope so. Because, I don't want to throw away a whole day because I messed up within the first hour of the day. You know what I'm saying? Like if something goes wrong, if your routine gets a little off kilter, or you have to not do something that you normally do every day, there are 24 hours in a day. If something goes wrong at hour 5, you still have 19 hours to make up for it. And you still have tomorrow. That was something I was, again, air quoting, chatting with someone tonight. And she was just talking about learning her limitations and her boundaries. And I said it's constant learning. It's just, never-ending cycle. And you have plenty of time because, whether you've just been diagnosed or you've been diagnosed 20 years ago, MS, your journey is long, and don't rush yourself. Be patient and tolerant.
When I think the patient comes, because I'm not saying, ruin the whole day because
Right.
you fell off your routine in the first couple hours. But at the same time, I think, give yourself time, take a couple hours just to get yourself back in order and stuff, and just to get back in line with the routine,
I
and
think
that's why lunch is so good, because then you can eat lunch and then it's like a brand new day.
it's just a clean slate when you have your lunch. So I think routine is very important, and I think routine matters for those of us living with multiple sclerosis or their caregivers.
And so, what do you all think? I mean, everyone that's listening, how important is routine in your life, and what types of routines? How do you maintain it? How do you move forward? Just let us know. I mean, look us up on Twitter. It's at DanJenDig, or look us up on our website. It's danandjenniferdigman.com. Just let us know about the routines. And
If you have some incredible tips to keep you going and maybe to keep or add spontaneity in your routine, just please let us know, because we're all in this together, and it's important to share information and tips to help us on our way with multiple sclerosis.
well, and I think that's why with this routine that we got into, Wednesday night, this is it. We record our radio show. And then that's just like, that's our routine, because if we didn't do it, chances are it wouldn't get done as regularly as it does. This way we know we can block out this time. So thank you all for listening. Again, this has been A Couple Takes on MS with Dan and Jennifer Digman. Thanks to Blue Giraffe Kid for composing the theme music to our program. And thanks to MS&Me Radio Network for having us on with you. Have a night. Take care. Bye.